I would be lying to you if I told you I picked this song. I ran out of time, and that's where we're at. But is this even music? I picked from you know what? Never mind. All right. There we go. A little bit of guitar. I'll play it underneath me. I might as well let it go all the way out. But what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, back with another episode of the Delivering Sports Show. Can't really speak today. I actually did a podcast earlier. I almost forgot my name, and Kevin can be my witness. He's actually going to be on the show, and I'll introduce him now. Kevin, what's happening? Oh, actually, 1 second. All right, what's happening, brother?
Boom. What's going on, man? I never know what to say when I first come on.
Yeah, I pulled it. I got sound effects now. It's going all out. You guys you have no idea what's about to go down on this. I'm going to go through a bunch of these, but Kevin, we got a lot to talk about tonight, and I want to make it NBA focused because we have a lot of shows here on KSHP. You know that. The TC Martin show goes super in depth about college. He actually had a WNBA player on today. He makes it happen. And me and you are experts on the NBA. So I think that's where we'll stick with it because there's just so much going on right now. We're a few weeks away from the playoffs. And what better place to start? Because I think this isn't a conversation that nobody's having, but I think is extremely, extremely important. And that's the future of the NBA. We know about Luka Doncic. We know about Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, all of these guys. But we'll just start this out simple. Do you think the league is really transitioning? Like, are we ushering in the new era of all-time greats? Because when Michael Jordan retired, you got Kobe Bryant, and then LeBron James obviously transitioned there. We're talking Mount Rushmore type of guys. Does anyone in the 25 and under range strike you as being the next all-time great?
Probably the closest one to that is Doncic, I would say. What do you think, Luka?
I'm asking you because I think this is actually a problem. Honestly, I think there's a lack of all-time greats.
I mean, I mean, otherwise, it's a pretty thin herd. Otherwise, I love the guys. I love the whether or not we really want it. These are the next generations of great NBA players, and where they will end up, eventually measuring on the pantheon of Hall of Fame NBA talent. That remains to be seen. But I'm not as optimistic about it, honestly. I don't think we have the star power or the talent to really carry us into the next generation.
Yeah, so you went appropriately to it, which is Luka Doncic. So let's talk about him for a second. I'm a Memphis Grizzlies fan. I just saw him hit a crazy game winner against us.
I'm watching the Knicks put him in prison right now.
Are you? Well, we can talk about the Knicks in a bit, but when you see Luka Doncic, what do you see in the future of him? We know he's just on another level, but will he be to the level of LeBron James? Like, is he that high for you, or does he still have a little bit of ways to go? And I think, is the media just a little enamored with him because of how exciting he is to play?
It's just a different kind of player, and I feel like he could be one of the first kind of hybrid wing kind of players that sets the standard, and eventually, I think, once the Mavericks can figure it out, or if he can leave the Mavericks, that'd be ideal. And eventually starts winning those championships because he's got I think championship level talent in him, and I think he has like the pedigree of the kind of player that you need if you want to win a championship. So I think it really does. When it comes to Luka, I think he could be an all-timer. How I feel about LeBron. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever going to match LeBron as far as just players that I'm going to watch with my own eyes. But I think that Luka, when it's all said and done, is going to be like one of the great ones.
Okay, I can agree with you there. Everybody enjoys watching Luka Doncic play. He clearly has a bit of a vision that no one else in the league, probably even like veterans, have at this point. So, is he going to be able to impact on the defensive side of the ball like we've seen LeBron James, and then Michael Jordan won Defensive Player of the Year? We know how good he was on that side. So I think we have a little bit of ways to go there. He's only like 22 years old, so I'm not here to stamp defensively. But we'll transition to the next guy on my top 10, 25 under 25, and that's Zion Williamson. People are ready to call him the next LeBron James. That was kind of his whole thing, his reputation coming into the league, but I got to be honest with you, Kevin. I got a lot of questions for Zion. Number one, his ability to impact winning. If you compare the Pelicans to the Mavericks, the Pelicans have a significantly better roster from top to bottom. Steven Adams, we know, is like a defensive stopper, not a defensive player of the year, but pretty darn up there. I mean, he's a skilled big guy. Zion Williamson. Brandon Ingram is like a top 15 player. Like, he's getting close to being that good offensively. Lonzo Ball's having a career year. And then you have
a career year every year. Yeah,
exactly. So what is that translated to? Nothing. They're not even in the play-in game right now. That's how bad the Pelicans have been. So how do you judge like his success, these 39-point games and losses and so on and so forth? Like, is it empty to you? Is it going to be like a Russell Westbrook thing where we see this guy put up 1 billion points at a time? I have more analysis on him, but I want to hear your first impressions on Zion so far in his second season.
I really like Zion. I'm viewing this more as his first full season. I don't think the sample size we got in those 20 games that he played last year, before the shutdown, I wouldn't really take those into account as any kind of meaningful sample size. The stuff he's shown, since being fully healthy and playing on a regular basis has lived up to pretty much every kind of whatever you could have expected for him. He's basically living up to it, and it's kind of flying under the radar at the same time. The reason being is because the Pelicans aren't winning games, and I think the reason, and I can't put it on a guy as young as Zion, the responsibility for him to know how to win NBA games at this level already. Like, that's just not something I think that we should expect of guys who are as young as him. Although we've seen it and it's possible, it's just not something I think we should expect. What I think we should expect is that for a coach to understand the kind of talent that is on his team. And I think Stan Van Gundy has always been a notorious guy for holding back really talented players once they hit a certain threshold. Like, he's very good at developing players, but once they get to a certain point, he doesn't know how to coach them beyond that level.
So what you're telling me is that Zion is not an all-time great like LeBron. Like, can we already just declare that now that he's not gonna? Is he not on the?
I don't know. The way I see him playing right now, dude, like Zion doesn't even know how to play basketball yet.
That's a problem. But I'm saying, like, Luka has already found out like how to be good and have his team win.
LeBron, Luka has
the finals in year 2. So I'm saying,
yeah, Luka has a couple more years on him than Luka has a couple more years over Zion, and a lot more experience playing professionally too. So at the same time, I Luka and Zion, I think, are different situations. But as far as LeBron, like I said, like I don't think you'll ever see. I won't ever lay eyes on a player like LeBron James, I think, for the rest of my life. And so I think, like, but I do think I think Zion and Luka could have Hall of Fame careers. Like, I don't think, and that's fine. I think both of those guys have the potential to win multiple championships.
There are 2 glaring problems for him, 3 really, because the thing is that we've never seen a player of his size. I don't think, at least not my lifetime, 6'7". I think he's not a huge guy, and
Zion,
isn't the speed and the strength. The combination of those things are unique to him, and no one else will probably have that in generations. He's not a great passer. Like, when he came into the league, they're like, oh, he's just like point forward. This, again, compared to LeBron James, he is not that talented. He definitely can't run an offense. He's never going to be Draymond Green. Not a lot of power forwards will ever be, so I guess that's a little unfair, but I really don't even see him developing that much to where you want the ball in his hands, like at the elbow, running an offense. And that's going to prevent him from being one of the best players. Like, it's so weird to talk about Mount Rushmore, but I think he can. A glaring issue for many years to come for him.
I think you're underrating his ability a little bit, because I think that I've seen Zion be able to make the open pass, and like dude, he's just as young as he's younger than Luka is, and I think.
A negative assist to turnover ratio in his rookie year, a 3-2 this year. He's not that great of a passer. Come on,
dude. He's 20.
I understand that. All I'm saying is that we are putting him on the pedestal next to all-time greats in terms of what he's doing. But I think we have to slow our roll a little bit.
Sure.
On playing up his skills, because the other part of this issue is he's a very good rebounder either. A guy with his physical abilities should average a double-double already in his second season. I say yes. He's getting
here's my thing with Zion is that he's a physical phenomenon, and he's relying purely on that right now. It's the same thing with Giannis to a degree, but I think Zion with his form, like Zion is not like you said, he's not mass, like he's not like a hulking like he's large, but he's not the tallest guy. And I feel like he's got good body control, especially for someone who plays as explosively as he does. I think that is going to help him make the transition to try and honing and developing his skills a lot easier than it has for a guy like Giannis. We were talking about Giannis the other night, how his it's just awkward when he shoots the ball because his arms are so long. Like Zion probably won't have those kinds of issues.
He's shooting also has a lot to be desired. He had that first game he came out. I think everybody in the country, that was probably the first.
What I'm saying is that like he's doing all of this based almost solely on his just being overpowering everybody on a physical level, right? Like that's basically how he's producing at all on the basketball court right now. It's just complete physical force. Yeah, and I think once you start peppering in like the development of his skills, it's a very dangerous player.
It can be, but again, I think there are so many pillars of his game that have a long way to go. I don't think this guy's going to be a threat in the NBA like the way we're thinking of him until maybe 25 years old. So we'll have to see. We'll go a little bit further down the list. And actually, I would like to talk about it because I wanted to talk about it with you next week was RJ Barrett. Obviously, he was not on ESPN's top 20 or top 25 players under 25 years old. You watch the Knicks quite a bit. You're a fan. How do you explain this? Like, what do you even do with that kind of information other than the fact that it was an obvious grab from ESPN to make headlines?
It was an obvious like troll. Like every time stuff like that happens, it gets Knicks fans very, very angry. And whenever Knicks fans get mad, they get very vocal and very it's a very big deal to them. And so but otherwise, yeah, it's kind of obvious to me at this point. RJ didn't have the greatest rookie year, but I think for anyone who was paying attention to him last season, he kind of the reasons you drafted him, they were there. They were on display when he was playing under Fizdale and then later Mike Miller. I think that he was as advertised, and there were obvious kind of growing pains for him there, but we're starting to see kind of the fruits of his labor now as, he's kind of coming into more of a fully developed role and play style. And yeah, I think, if everyone were to really kind of put biases to the side, he's definitely on that list.
I agree. I think his skill set, the fact that Jared Allen is over him on the list means that whoever, again, I hate arguing these things because that's what they made the article for.
They got in your head with this one, man.
They got it in me, but of course RJ Barrett is going to be there. And for me, he's in like the top 15, probably. I can't imagine I'd have too many players. Just knowing that a small forward with extreme athleticism, the passing ability that rivals, most small forwards already in the league and so on and so forth.
It's above average playmaking for his position. He's really kind of developed more on the two-way game. And he is the second best player on a playoff team right now.
Yeah, and there's one more young player that I'm going to talk about before we go into a more general MVP talk is Jason Tatum. This is a guy, again, like Zion, people are comparing to all-time greats, and I'm not going to tell you he doesn't have an elite, scoring skill set offensively, but have you seen enough from him, like just overall in terms of impacting, winning, defensively, passing, being the leader the Celtics have drafted him to be, and they have put him on this pedestal to be, where he's going to have like MVPs in the future? I'm very far from saying he'll ever win an MVP in his career right now.
Jason Tatum, an MVP, huh?
Yes.
Jason Tatum. I don't know. It's a regular season awards too. I feel like we have to take into account that the MVP is not an end all be all. It's a very flawed award in its nature. And I feel like when you accept that it is largely based on the regular season, which I don't particularly agree with, I can kind of see it. I can kind of see him getting to a point where the Celtics are regular season merchants for the most part anyway. And so I can see them kind of putting it together in the regular season to the point where Tatum is the focus of it, and he can be at the center of a very successful regular season campaign, as the Celtics are known for lately. I can see it. If the Celtics win like 60 games,
does he do enough for you? Like Jaylen Brown, I think would win an MVP well before Jason Tatum does. Like Jaylen Brown is progressing in a scary level that none of us, I think, thought when he was.
I've always been Jaylen Brown high.
A little bit of that goofy shot coming into the league for Jaylen Brown, but clearly he's figured out his shooting.
He didn't have a handle either, and now he's kind of just he has a very deep bag now. It's crazy.
And when he entered the league defensively, he was all the way there. I mean, yeah. So when you see that, like, why is Jason Tatum easily the number one guy talked about on the Celtics? And I think Jaylen Brown's more important than him, even though I had him like way differently. I think I had a 3-spot difference on my 25 under 25. Why do you think that Tatum gets a lot more attention?
It's interesting. I think it's because Tatum probably was like, his earlier returns were better. Just when he entered the league there, he had, more of a mitigated role as, I think the Celtics had a contending, roster going on at the time. But, Tatum in the, spurts that he got to play, Tatum was really, really good. And Jaylen Brown was definitely a project. Like Jaylen Brown, there was a lot of, polarizing conversation around Jaylen Brown during the times, before he was an all-star. And so that's probably why I feel like people are more skeptical to realize that, this version of Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, is legitimate. Like this is the final form. Like this is who he was meant to be. But yeah, I think that would probably be why. It's probably just because, Jaylen was probably more of a late bloomer while Tatum, had this earlier success.
I suppose I'm not really scared of the Celtics in the playoffs. Not that you and I are playing them, but they just don't seem like. I think that he has a lot of growing up to do. Well beyond the court. I'm not talking about.
Okay. We're getting
Have you
personal.
ever seen the team rally behind him? Have you ever seen the team really like play for him?
So you mean like as a leader and okay. That's fair.
Have you seen anything different from him? Like, where do you stand on that?
We always get a limited perspective on these kinds of things. I feel like, leadership comes in many forms. But yeah, I feel like in the traditional ways to where guys like, when you hear them talk, when you hear, people talk and stuff like that and how they, if their respect is kind of, apparent and stuff like that. And so maybe we're just not paying close enough attention. But yeah, I if that's what you're getting at, I can definitely see that he has some like maturing to do as a leader for sure.
Yeah, a lot of guys in the 25 under 25 do. And I actually think that's kind of across the board. The worst thing on that list is only Luka Doncic has impacted winning. Other than you can say Jamal Murray to a certain extent, but he's got Jokic.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like 25 is very young, and there's still a lot of maturing to do. And I think
but the all-time greats we knew on the onset.
For sure.
How impactful they were going to be in their NBA.
And you could tell, and you can clearly see it when it's those guys. And there's no one really that jumps out in that way other than, to me, Luka and Zion.
Not Zion, but Luka only, I'll say. But we'll transition here. We're going to go into a more general NBA MVP talk. And I just want to, I don't remember the show, but I listen to SiriusXM NBA radio like constantly. It's basically all I listen to. Some of the hosts are just unhinged, man. They say whatever. And it's really hard to like, I have to bring it to the show because I need the world to know about it. I have to talk about it because when you hear it,
you're like, just like affirm the existence of like, are we in the Twilight Zone with this?
Yes. I look around my car. No one's in there. Obviously, I'm just driving to and fro Pahrump, and I want to call in. I don't have any signal, but okay, we're going to start with these two guys, and we're going to branch off to a whole other list of candidates and why, of course, they're not going to be MVP. Donovan Mitchell and Kawhi Leonard. These guys they just popped him up. Besides okay, we're going to take it just a player at a time. Why can't Kawhi Leonard be the MVP this year? Now I'm saying in the future he'll never win an MVP, but can you just tell simply to my beautiful audience why, of course, Kawhi Leonard is not in the MVP conversation this year?
He's like barely played, I feel like. It's like I can never see Kawhi play.
And has he been that great this year?
And have the Clippers really kind of been like delivering on expectations? I feel like the Clippers still have a lot of expectations coming into the year. Like essentially seeing because they got punked last year. Like they were kind of like one of the odds-on favorites besides the Lakers out of the West, and they got punked pretty badly. So if anyone was like, if the spotlight should be on anyone, it's on the Clippers. They're flying under the radar right now, and I don't really know how. But yeah, what has Kawhi done really this year? Like,
yeah, you can't just throw that question up. Why not Kawhi? There's a lot of reasons why. Don't just like act
why
like
Kawhi? Like you should be making the case for why Kawhi is an MVP candidate. Like you should be convincing us.
We say voter fatigue is like a thing where it's like, oh, if they didn't perform in the playoffs. That is not what that means. Because Giannis has won 2 MVPs in a row. Voter fatigue means they voted this guy as the most valuable player in the league and they found out why he wasn't. Kawhi Leonard has not won MVP. Like, your first one's free for MVPs, in my opinion. Like, you can just kind of get those with whatever you've done in the playoffs at this point. As your career progresses, you're probably not going to win another MVP or so on and so forth because of that. So Kawhi's out. Donovan Mitchell. They had the best record in the NBA, and he's been one of the best players on them. So this is a little tougher than Kawhi by a large margin, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of clear reasons why not, but why can't Donovan Mitchell be in this conversation like so many Utah fans want him to be?
I think he should actually. When you look at it as objectively as you can, like that's probably one of the most solid arguments you can make. He has been the best player on the Utah Jazz. Like, unquestionably, he is leading this charge, and they have been. You don't think so?
No,
you think Mike Conley? You think Mike Conley is the
dude? Are you kidding?
You think Rudy? You think they're saddling up for Rudy Gobert? Rudy Gobert's the one leading the charge out of that locker room.
3 defensive players
out of my face with that.
In 3 years.
You got to take your Rudy Gobert stand-him down a notch.
About this guy. Why are you hit? Rudy Gobert should get more MVP votes than Donovan Mitchell, and it should not be close. The thing is, look at it this way. Donovan Mitchell has missed some time this year, not enough to get him out of the MVP race like another guy we're going to talk about. He's missed time, and they've been fine without him. If they miss time without Rudy Gobert, they have absolutely no one to replace him, and they would not be anywhere near the first seed in the NBA.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that Rudy Gobert is what's making this team run.
Ben Simmons is polluting your mind or something.
It's not Ben. It's not just Ben Simmons. I genuinely think that the Jazz have assembled a team that really fits around these two. Like those are the two main guys that the team is built around. And I think that they've done a really good job building and trying to cultivate a system that works for with all of their components. I think Donovan Mitchell is at the core of that. Honestly, I think Rudy Gobert plays his role, and he plays his role probably better than anybody else in the NBA right now. But dude, it's Donovan Mitchell is the engine at this. If it was just Rudy Gobert, man, we would not be talking about the Jazz as finals contenders.
Oh, yes, okay, of course. The Utah Jazz would not be a threat in the West without Donovan Mitchell. A finals threat, I'll say. They would be in the playoffs without Donovan Mitchell.
Sure.
They would not.
Definitely. They have a good team.
They would be the 8th seed in the West without Rudy Gobert this season.
I don't know about that.
You see how much of a difference that makes? What do you mean you don't know about that? You can't deny.
I don't know if it's such that big of a drop off.
Who replaces Rudy Gobert in that lineup and makes that big of a difference for them and makes them the best defensive team in the league?
They got to score points, man. Like
they score a lot.
Where are they at defensively?
They have to be near the top of the list. I don't have it, but
I'll try and pull it up. But you got to explain yourself. Yeah, I mean.
That thing bleeds.
I get to put it. You know what I mean? He alters the way that you have to run your offense against the Utah Jazz. Donovan Mitchell is not a defensive stopper either. We also have to put that in mind. Is he there to make the big shots, and does he enjoy making them? And Rudy Gobert cannot make them. I can't deny that. But when you want to talk about Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell goes down, Mike Conley gets more shot, Bogdanovich gets more shot, Joe Ingles gets more shot, Jordan Clarkson gets more shot. They kind of fill his role for him. Not in the last 2 minutes, but for the most of the game.
Here's my thing is, okay, so we have the Jazz as a top 5 defense in the NBA. One guy is not making a top 5 defense. One guy can anchor a top 5 defense, and I will give that to Rudy Gobert. He anchors a top 5 defense, and he's a legitimate all around interior threat. Like I am not gonna be ignorant about Rudy Gobert's skill. Like he's verified. But one guy does not make all of that happen. It's the same thing. Like I'm not going to put Mitchell Robinson and Rudy Gobert on the same scale, but the Knicks lost Mitchell Robinson, and they are still the best defense in the NBA.
but Rudy Gobert is significantly better on defense.
Sure, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like that it would be a much bigger drop off for the Jazz, but I don't think it would be from the first seed to the 8th seed.
Okay,
that's pretty crazy.
Someone from Twitter is popping in. Great transition. Dude, whenever we have comments, they're always just lead us right into the next topic. It's like I planned this. I did not plant these people. This is Koopa Loop 81. He says, "Who is MVP, Embiid or Jokic?" Fantastic. We were just going to bring Embiid up. We know Embiid has missed time, but there's also one other thing we know about Embiid this season. He's been the most dominant player in the NBA, bar none. LeBron. Sure. The LeBron propaganda, first of all, I'm not listening to it. Did he have a bad season? No. Was he leading the Lakers to a very good season? Yes. But he's had better seasons in his career, and he was not considered MVP, and now certainly was the season. I think that was
definitely trying to make amends for all the times he's been snubbed the past few years.
Yeah, so we'll transition to the real guys who should be MVP, Embiid and Jokic. To me, Jokic is leading right now, but when you vote MVP, you don't have to account for games missed. That's just kind of a general thing that we all say. So what say you? Is Embiid still in your MVP race, even though he's missed, I think, 16, 18 games at this point?
I mean, yeah, it's obviously, I agree. It's a 2-man race between Embiid and Jokic at this point, which also tells you, like we have said, about where the state of big men are at in the NBA, by the way. Like, we've always been right about that.
Absolutely.
I think I would probably still give it to Jokic too, but it's a very this last stretch of the season is obviously going to be the most vital, not only just because it's going to kind of, obviously see who's going to come out of the regular season with the better record, but the Nuggets just lost Jamal Murray, and so that's more pressure on Jokic. That's more on Jokic's back. Obviously, they still have a really talented roster, but losing Jamal Murray is not that is huge. It's massive. And that's definitely, it changes the whole outlook on the Denver Nuggets for the rest of the season. And so how Jokic is able to respond to that and how he can kind of accept that new level of responsibility is a huge determining factor in who's going to win MVP between him and Embiid. Because if there's even the slightest drop off with Jokic, and it's very likely to happen too, just because it's tough to lose a guy like Jamal Murray. If there's a slightest drop off with how Jokic has been playing, Embiid's probably going to run away with it. It's very close. It's very tight because the Sixers are fantastic with or without him.
Yeah,
they're dominant with him.
There's more conversations to have. I don't think it is a 2-man race, and we'll talk about that for a second in a second. But Jamal Murray going down is either the worst or the best thing for Jokic in terms of his MVP. I don't know if it even matters to him. I'm sure it doesn't, but they already had a big victory, and they also have a very easy schedule at the end here. If he just puts up 30 points a night, then there's no conversation. And the other guys I'm about to list, they're not even in the discussion either. So I agree with you there. Again, it's so hard because James Harden should also be mentioned
for sure.
And that's, this guy is putting up insane stats. He also missed the first 13 games for the Rockets, and now he's missing some time with the hamstring. He's probably completely out. Like, he wasn't even as.
I don't think you can give a regular season award to someone who is just so blatantly lacking in respect of the regular season. None of the Nets respect anything about the regular season, so I don't think we should be giving them any awards, to be honest with you. With peace and love to James Harden, he's having a fantastic year, and I would say in regular circumstances with how he's playing, he's definitely up there. But it's a regular season award. I'm going to treat it like a regular season award. If James Harden doesn't want to turn it, like, none of the Nets are getting serious to the playoffs. I don't think they have any business giving MVP to any of the Nets, honestly.
Yeah. So Koopa Loop 81 check back in. Jokic 29-3 tonight. Again, I kind of just said that, but Embiid, best player on best team, dropped over 35 for 3 straight games. It's pretty tough. But there's 2 other names, Kevin, that we should be talking about as of right now. Guys who have been playing the entire season, missed very minimal time, if any. Damian Lillard and Steph Curry. So I guess this also comes down to your philosophy on how you view games. Does winning matter for your MVP award? It didn't for Russell Westbrook, but is he playing that well where you kind of just have to give it to him?
You have to be playing. Yeah. If it's going to be at a point where you're giving it to someone despite them not having the best record, or they have to be playing overwhelmingly like dominant. It has to be historically dominant, in my opinion. Peace and love to Steph. Not even close to his full. Like, this is not even Steph Curry's final form. Steve Kerr has been a hater like for years now. Let the leash off Steph Curry, man. There's no way they should get 500. Like, dude, this guy shoots 12 for 25 on a regular, like, on an off night, it's 30 points, man. Like, it doesn't make any sense to why he doesn't get, like, if you gave Steph Curry, I said this to you offline, smidge of the response, like a smidge of Rockets, D'Antoni, James Harden responsibility, it's going to be a whole new ball game, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, Steph is interesting. He went like 11 for 16 from downtown the other night. Steve Kerr sat him. He wouldn't even let him get close to the record, which is ridiculous, in my opinion. He wanted to go back.
Hater.
The more interesting one is obviously the Trailblazers, because they are securely in the playoffs as of right now. I don't know. Damian Lillard, we know it, big shot Dame, whatever they call him. I don't even know anymore, but it's Dame time. He had a great showing at the All-Star game. Not that really matters for MVP, but we know he's had a pretty spectacular season. He's the leader of that team, and they were without CJ McCollum for a significant portion, at least a quarter of the season. He's back now. He's got to be talked about. Like, he's at probably number 3 at this point, right?
Here's the thing, man. They're the 6th seed. The Knicks are the 6th seed. It's
in the West, though.
It's the West. It's the West. But I think at the same time, it's like, how much better are the Trailblazers than the Knicks? You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same time, like, again, it's not overwhelming. It's kind of in that same Westbrook range. Like, the Thunder were in that, like, lower playoff seeds to where they're kind of like the middle of the pack towards the end. And if your team's in that situation, you need to be having a historical season for me to be convinced to give the MVP to somebody. And 28, 7 and 4, it doesn't do it for me, man. It doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, like, they're a big joke to me. I'll tell you why he's not an MVP. On paper, he looks like it. Besides the fact that his stats don't jump off the page other than his scoring.
Dude, those numbers really don't mean anything anymore. Like, those numbers were great in like the 2010s when Kevin Durant was winning MVP and the scoring title, scoring 27 points per game. But now we got guys throwing like 35 a game.
Yeah, dude. When scoring 110 was special. That's kind of when that happened. But I'll tell you what makes him off my list. Have you ever seen Damian Lillard dive for a loose ball or make a big defensive stop?
This is your argument. This is going to be your argument.
Yeah, why? What's wrong with
that? He doesn't get down in the gutters.
Yeah, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I thought that was
I don't know. I don't think that's big enough to disqualify him. I feel like there's bigger disqualifiers.
We're talking about most valuable player, not most cool guy, or you know what I'm saying? It's got to be.
I can get that.
James Harden, to a certain extent, will give himself up for a play. I've never seen Damian do that. At least on the defensive side of the ball, that goes in. That
you don't think Damian Lillard's just gonna? You don't think Damian Lillard just wants to lay it on the line?
Have you seen him do it? Ever?
I don't know. I've seen him make the big shot. That's important to me. I've seen him make the big shot over and over again.
Have you ever seen him? Has he developed his game in his career?
I mean, from the point of like the biggest thing was him kind of just taking those ridiculously long.
He's shooting, yes. Have you any other part of his?
Otherwise, yeah, he's always been kind of a cut, like a 3-level, like a cutting 3-level scorer, decent playmaker. He doesn't give you much on the defensive end. Yeah, it's just Dame has just always been very limited as a player. Like the biggest thing you get with him is scoring, and it's sometimes you need rebounds more than points. Sometimes, man, like sometimes you need stops.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
He needs to practice more. All right, AI. I don't care what you say. This guy needs. They need more from him to be successful. They gave him a supermax deal. You get. I think it's a mistake to sign anybody to a supermax. It's never worked out, literally ever. But if you are, you got to be sure that this guy is all in, and I just don't feel that from him. I think he puts a little bit too much of the onus. Like, you have to be the best player in a championship team. They cannot sign anybody else for you to do that, and he hasn't done enough. And as much as I would love for him to win MVP because I have money on him to do that this year, I chose him before the season started. He's just not progressing like I'd want him to be personally. So that's kind of, I don't think anyone else is really in the MVP talk at this point in the season. That's just about it. I want to get more talking about a specific team, and we'll start on a more simple level. And the Brooklyn Nets, they won the buyout market, bar none. LaMarcus Aldridge has obviously retired now, but nobody could have seen that coming. They got Blake Griffin and LaMarcus. That's a big deal. Everybody wanted those two guys, and they signed immediately with them. Let's talk about this in a greater conversation. Does it matter to you that these aging all-stars were looking for the easy chip? Do you think you hold that against them? Does that go against your competitive nature?
No, not really. I think the higher I think the volatility of everything, all of the other, elite players, like how volatile the superstar market is in the rest of the NBA. Like Blake Griffin in 2021 is not an NBA superstar. Neither was LaMarcus Aldridge. They were great players who had, really interesting primes. They were great to watch, but who they are now is not those guys. And so it's really not a big deal to me. It's probably not even as big of a deal to Brooklyn. Like obviously Blake Griffin's playing really well right now. He's probably like healthy for the first time in God knows how long. But I think when it's largely inconsequential for them. I don't think this is like their much needed bench depth. This is just like, if he plays well, they get the minutes. But if not, like they have no problem. They would have had no problem sitting LaMarcus Aldridge or Blake Griffin if at any point they stop playing well.
Yeah, and the onus is not on Brooklyn to play these guys. Absolutely.
Exactly.
What I'm trying to say is, like, from Blake Griffin's perspective, do you think this is kind of embarrassing for him, the way that his career is unfolding? Or if he gets the championship, it won't matter anyways?
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, some guys just look at the ring and just be like, we've made the conversation largely about rings for the last 10 years now.
Right.
It was kind of at the center of the LeBron Jordan debate for such a long time. And so can we really blame players if the conversation is so dominated around, the amount of rings a player retires with? Can we really be mad at players if that's what they kind of prioritize? If they can, they look for ways to try and maximize how they can win championships. Blake Griffin has won a lot of. Blake Griffin has been to the playoffs. He's experienced those grind them out series, good basketball. Blake Griffin has played some good basketball in his career, and if he thinks I've done my time, I've made my money, I want to go get my ring and kind of ride off in the sunset, I can respect that. I can respect that about Blake Griffin.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, I agree with you. Everyone talks about championships. That's the only thing that matters. I don't think it should, because of how difficult it should be.
For sure. Yeah. I definitely don't think we should have that discourse around championships right in that way.
We are in a different NBA. And do you think this is healthy for the game, that we're to the point now where it literally everyone just teams up? Is that unhealthy for basketball?
No, I don't. I don't like watching that personally. It's very hard to get invested into a team when its best players, that they spent so much time and effort. Not to cape for the teams or the organizations or anything like that. I feel like it should be on Adam Silver to try and facilitate better relationships between players and organizations, so that stuff like this doesn't happen. I definitely think the conversation around, what it means to be a successful NBA player needs to change too. Obviously, championships are what it's all about in the end, and that's why everybody gets, is in the game to play. But disrespecting people's legacies, we've truly seen in the past 10 years some all-time talent in this league, and we've seen them switch around, an incredible amount of times, just because basically we wouldn't verify their Hall of Fame careers unless they went somewhere else and won a ring.
There's a very easy solution to this, and I think you and I both know the answer. You lower the salary cap. Don't prorate players' salary.
Money.
It shouldn't be physically possible for Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie to play on the same team unless one of them accepts $10 million a year. If you eliminate that problem, you don't have to worry about guys teaming up, because they're not going to give up that much money to make it happen. That's how you disperse talent in the league, and I think that's why it happened for so long. Like this isn't like a lot longer ago.
Like this isn't the economy. Regulate the free agent market, guys. Like don't let this stuff happen. It's like it's not fun to watch. Like I respect the Nets as a team. I respect the hell out of them, but I don't like watching them play. It's not fun for me, particularly, to be honest.
Where they just outscore everybody and they don't care about defense at all because
I honestly say this even if I wasn't as much of a Knicks fan as I was. If I was completely outside of it, I would still prefer to watch the Knicks over the Nets. I think the Knicks are a way more fun team to watch.
Let's talk about that Nets team a little bit more because they haven't been fully healthy, but for 3 games this season, which is an issue. Like they have to find a way to make that happen by the time the playoffs start. It seems like they will. Like it really feels like they're messing around in the regular season and just waiting for this to happen. But injuries can happen at any point. Obviously, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie, all these guys have missed important playoff games because of injuries. But let's say they are healthy. Is there anybody in the league who can actually stop them from going straight to the finals?
No, absolutely not. I don't think so. When you and I had a pretty big discussion about whether or not it's possible for the Bucks to do it with the team they've assembled. If anything, the Bucks I think are the best matchup. Like you and I are in agreement that the Bucks are the best possible matchup that you can throw at the Nets at this point. But I think they have just been baited, like using the regular season to beta test basically everything they would kind of throw at teams in the playoffs. And I think once that time comes around, you're going to see everyone suddenly start to magically look real bouncy, an extra bounce in their step and everyone's healthy and all that stuff. And then we'll finally kind of see the fully formed Death Star in Brooklyn, man.
Well, let's talk about this Milwaukee matchup a little bit more in depth. Jrue Holiday will be playing against Kyrie Irving, and we know Jrue Holiday is playing to an all-star level after the all-star break, which is more important than playing like an all-star before the all-star break. Who cares, right?
100%, yeah.
PJ Tucker, we know, is near an all-NBA defensive player level type of guy. He's a little bit older, so it's not as great. He's going to be playing primarily on James Harden if they're smart. And
if
then
I want a guy to guard a star player on another team, PJ Tucker is definitely one of the 5 best guys for that job, for sure.
And Giannis is probably the only player in the NBA who can match Kevin Durant in size and athleticism. So once we get past there, you have decently favorable matchups. We talked about, in the East being that the best matchup. They might be the best matchup for them pound for pound in the NBA out of everybody. Now, are there other teams that have bigger mismatches? Like, would you love to see Joel Embiid play against the Brooklyn Nets because they wouldn't be able to stop them? No. But you also have to consider Giannis just as a whole offensively against the Brooklyn Nets.
MVP, yeah, he's an MVP level talent. Like,
Giannis, we didn't even mention Giannis in the
legitimately
MVP. Crazy. He's having an insane season.
Legitimately unstoppable. Like, it's just an overpowering force. Like, it's Zion realized. Zion in the full physical capacity. That's what that is realized is Giannis, man. It's just there's no stopping him. But the issue is, like I said, we were talking earlier about this issue that we have is just like who's generational in this next guard of NBA players. We're searching for those guys because they're not jumping off the page for us. But in Brooklyn, they got 3 of those guys, man. Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, all timers. Like you cannot tell the story of basketball without those 3 names. And so I don't see how you can mount an offense that will overcome that in any way, regardless of how well you match up on the defensive end. It's like, again, you can throw whoever at Kyrie, whoever at James Harden, whoever at Kevin Durant. They are still those guys, and they're still gonna get buckets.
They are, and I think the game plan for beating them, as you know, my opinion is hitting the offensive glass as hard as humanly possible.
Yep.
You got to try to slow them down and keep them in the half court. Not that that's going to make things all fine and dandy, but if you can get those extra points on the offensive glass and prevent them from leaking out and getting the easiest buckets possible, trying to hold them within that 110, 115 range, which Adam Silver's NBA is truly disgusting that I have to say 110 to 115 as a good defensive night, but it's true. If you can get them there, I think the Milwaukee Bucks can score 120 a night against Brooklyn.
I think the biggest thing for Brooklyn is just get them stop the ball. Like get one guy dribbling, get one guy over dribbling. When that ball is moving around the court as they have shown a proclivity to doing, like everyone who touches the ball on that court is dangerous at some point or in some position of the court. And so you have to get them into, like, obviously you don't want to, ISO is still not a situation you'd love to be in with Kyrie, but it's definitely a situation I would love to be in with Kyrie over a situation with him taking a wide open spot up jump shot because you had two guys close out on Kevin Durant. You know what I mean?
It's scary.
It's just ridiculous to think about.
That's the East, but if they do walk into the finals, they're going to have to play somebody. Who would you say in the West has the best chance to beat them? Is it the Lakers? Is it
probably still is the Lakers? I don't really trust another team. I don't know. It's really, really hard to say. It feels like I'm going so far out on a limb to even suggest that the Suns might be able to like have
Mikal Bridges
do anything, like to have any kind of strategy. But it feels like they have a really, really good team this year, so I feel like if we're trying to match talent, the Suns can do a pretty decent job matching talent. I feel like Devin Booker and Kyrie are on the same level offensively at the very least.
Sure. People do not understand how good Devin Booker is in terms of being an elite scorer. He's up there with Kyrie, not dribbling, but putting the ball in the basket. Yeah, he can do that pretty darn well. So you got there. The only problem is Kevin Durant is just kind of a wild card.
Yeah, you still have Kevin. Still Kevin Durant is unaccounted for in that scenario too. So it's really hard to draw up any situation in which the Nets just don't win and walk away with it all.
Yeah, and it may not last very long. I think a lot of these guys are on 1-year deals, and there's a lot of they're nutcases.
It's volatile for sure.
It's waiting to collapse. But if they can get it done for 1 year. Let's talk about this as a greater narrative. You and I will probably agree on this, but if they win the championship this year and it collapses, and we know they gave up their future for James Harden, like the next, again, very much like the Paul Pierce, so they gave up everything.
KG Paul Pierce level trade, yeah.
Would it be worth it for you if they're bad again for the next decade after winning a championship?
Yeah, if I literally if they push literally because that's what they did. They pushed literally every single chip in on this season because you got fully healthy Kevin Durant, you got Kyrie Irving healthy. Why not go and get James Harden and try and win a championship? For me, as a logical person, I feel like they get that one championship, it's all worth it. I know for some people they won't be satisfied unless they three-peat. So it really is kind of depends on who you ask. But in my opinion, if they win the championship this year, it's definitely worth it.
If I could give up 1 year of Memphis or all those years, like my entire childhood of Memphis going to the conference finals and the semifinals, all that kind of stuff for one championship. Yeah.
To see Ja Morant hoist that Larry O.B. just one time, huh?
I gotta admit to you and everybody listening live on air, I thought about maybe one day that happening where the Grizzlies win a championship sometime in my lifetime, especially with this core group of guys. I started to cry in my car. I will be inconsolable. I have a very long drive back to my house, as you guys.
You have a very deep attachment to those guys. Like you've been kind of like really invested from this team from the start of the rebuild.
I will not be if they're in the finals and they have a chance to like win it that night. I will not watch the game with anybody else because I'll just be sobbing my eyes out if they win the game, and if they lose, I'll be sobbing too. We have like 7 minutes here, and I'm going to get to a little bit of NFL news and kind of general. We've been talking about this as the weeks go on. Deshaun Watson, one case was dropped today because of concerns over safety and such, but there's still over 20 cases here for him to deal with. How do you see, like, what is the future of Deshaun Watson? Like, he might go to prison. I don't know. Celebrities always just don't seem to go to jail because I don't know why. Even if he doesn't serve time for all these heinous crimes, is there a path back for Deshaun Watson to go back to normal? Is there ever going back to normal for him?
I think this feels. I obviously want to approach this subject with a fair amount of sensitivity, but it really is hard to say because so much of this, like one way or another, whether any of this is true or otherwise, like whether all situations are bad. I feel like all outcomes, all possible outcomes to the situation are bad in my opinion, because if these things are true, and Deshaun Watson did even at least some of these things. Not all, not even all, but at least some of these things. It's horrible and despicable and kind of horrifying to think about. And on the inverse, if it isn't true, and this has just been like I said, like, again, I don't think it's likely that the Houston Texans mounted this insane, massive conspiracy against Deshaun Watson just because he wanted a trade. But like, even then, if that unlikely scenario happens to be the case, that is almost equally as awful to me. That would be wildly depressing to hear about. And so it's really sad to see that this is where things have gotten. And I really just hope that the truth comes out, and whoever isn't telling the truth at this current moment faces the consequences of it, man.
Yeah. So we've always had this narrative in sports of, really just in life, that if you're good enough at something, you can get away with it. Michael Jackson, I'm not saying that any of these things are true, but we all know about the accusations with Michael Jackson.
Does he have are you asking if Deshaun Watson has the transcendent talent to beat these?
Ben, Kobe
I don't think so.
All of these guys.
I don't think so, man. This is like Bill Cosby level. And if this is kind of like a historic take, like, and not to make light of the Bill Cosby situation, but Bill Cosby was one of the most beloved figures in all of American culture, like in all of American television, like he was an icon, and his legacy is forever tarnished in the eyes of many people, in the eyes of most people, I'd say. And so I don't think that you can have. I think once it reaches a certain threshold of all of this stuff mounting against you, I really don't know how you kind of go back from that as a public figure. Maybe you can, maybe Deshaun Watson, if he did do any of these things, can make amends in his personal life. But as a public figure, I don't see how you come back from that.
And I'll tell you what what I see as a real issue and why I think this is not good for him, because when a lot of this stuff was accumulating, their first response, really, like their first public thing, was to come out with a list of people who said he didn't do to.
Dude, it's like, yeah,
that is not the approach.
That is not a defense. That's not a defense. And it's like, okay, every time the story changes on either end, it just makes my stomach feel more. It'd feel worse, just because it's just like, these are very serious things that we're talking about here, and I want them to be taken seriously. And every time the story changes on someone's end, it makes me really concerned about where this is headed. So
yeah, and
I really hope that we find some kind of peaceful resolution to this.
And I'm going to reiterate here this whole idea that the Houston Texans were sitting on this, and now, like, because of the trade talks, they let it out. Whether or not that's true, it does not matter. If he did this, he did this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like if he did it, then it doesn't matter. But if he didn't, well, yeah, if he didn't do it,
I mean, we're talking about the collapse about football.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like both of the outcomes of these situations are equally horrible, in my opinion.
Definitely. We have time for like a quick 30-45 second spot. Clowney, he's going to the Browns. For some reason, people say this as headlines. This guy's never had 10 sacks in his career, period. He had 0 in 6 games last year. Does this move the needle for you as a Steelers fan? Does this scare you that Clowney's now in the Browns?
The issues with the Browns, the things to be scared of when it came to the Browns were not like they already beat the spirit out of us, man. Like any pride or shame that the Steelers had was put on full display by the Browns, and anything they do is kind of piling it on at this point, because I personally, I always said it. I went on this show and said it. I've said it on other podcasts. I will not buy into the Browns until they give me a reason to, and I'm sticking to my word. I'm gonna eat crow. I'm gonna continue to eat crow and say that the Browns are legit, and this is a move that will help them continue to pound the Steelers for the next decade.
That thing bleeding to the, you know what I mean?
Well, okay, we're out of time. I just wanted to play some sound bites. Here's a couple of other ones.
Fucking humans, okay?
That's my favorite one.
All right. Thanks, Kev, for joining the show. We're out of time. I have like 20 seconds here. Be sure to look out on Blue Milk Boys Gaming on Monday, Anime Monday. We're talking about Mob Psycho for all my anime fans out there. And we'll pretty much just see you next time. I don't have anything else I don't have time. So here's Freebird. Why not? A little solo, and this will end the show. Many more Fridays, many more delivering sports shows.
Coach Harvey Hyde is heard right here. AM 1400, KSHP, North Las Vegas, at KSHP.com.